Hey y'all, Texas Tater Bug. Now I'm going to admit I did not expect my first video for this channel to be a cooking video, but the weather's just not cooperating. I've got lots of projects I want to do outside with you guys, lots of kind of maker stuff, some things to do with Cub Scouts, that kind of thing, but it's just not working out today. It really hasn't worked out for the last 2 weeks. It's been like 10 degrees outside, and today it finally got above freezing, and now it's sleeting or hailing or whatever it's doing anyway. So I thought I would do this video about cooking for vegetarians, and what I want to share with you guys is 3 tips for cooking for vegetarians, and then 1 essential thing for any time you're trying to prepare food for vegetarians. And I thought I'd start by telling you exactly why it is that I think I'm qualified to give you this information. So about 15 years ago, when I was in my last year of medical school, I decided that I was going to be a vegetarian. I'd read some stuff and decided that that was the right thing for me, and you know, I'll just leave that there. Anyway, but I'm the cook of my family, and I prepare food for my family every day, and I cook meat 3 or 4 times a week for my family. And you can feel free to bombard me in the comments with questions about why that is. But for my children, I cook meat, and for that gives my wife a chance to not be a vegetarian because she can choose to eat what I've prepared for the kids. And so I feel like I am uniquely in this situation where I have eaten as a vegetarian for over a decade, and know a lot about why you might want to be a vegetarian, and yet I still prepare meat on a regular basis. And having grown up in Texas, I know what it's like to be a meat eater, and I understand that we are all designed to be omnivores and to consume meat. And so I want to talk about what you can do when you're preparing food for vegetarians, so that you're not kind of intimidated by the whole process of cooking for somebody who eats differently than you. And I'll tell you that most vegetarians they'll tell you they can find something to eat. They're not going to be they're not going to go hungry. So if you will follow these guidelines, I think that you'll be less intimidated by cooking for vegetarians, and I think they will enjoy the meal that you prepared for them more, and you will enjoy the meal that you prepared for them more, and it will make you more likely to consider cooking without meat in the future. So my first tip for preparing food for vegetarians is to enhance the flavor of the food with acidity. Now, acids can be a little bit intimidating, but there's easy ways to add acids to foods, and I'm not going to belabor this point. I've got a few examples here. If you've got fresh lemon, lime, fresh citrus, that's fantastic. If you've got fresh tomatoes, that's a fantastic thing to add to a dish. If you don't have those fresh things, that's just fine. Plain white vinegar, the cheapest one you can buy from the grocery store, canned tomatoes, bottled lemon juice, any of those things are going to add acidity. They're going to bring out and enhance the flavors of the food, and you will enjoy the food more, and your vegetarian guests will definitely enjoy the food more. My second tip for preparing food for vegetarians is to make sure that you enhance the flavor, that you don't just rely on the innate flavors of the vegetables themselves. Most people have this kind of false conception of vegetarians that really what we want to do is eat salads all the time, and I will tell you, I will avoid a salad anytime that I can, because salads just don't have any flavor. What brings out the flavor in salads are kind of some of the things we've talked about, like adding acidity to your dressings and some other things. The vegetables by themselves don't have a lot of inherent flavor, and so what you want to do is you want to bring out and enhance those flavors. And there's lots of ways to do that, but if you're using spices, this is basil and thyme from my garden here in the backyard. I've got an onion here. Some fresh ginger root is a good option if you're wanting to enhance flavors. If you don't have access to those kinds of things, fine. Here's canned or bottled minced garlic. That'll work fine. You can get store-bought spices, even spice blends. If you don't want to try and figure out how much garlic, how much salt, how much pepper to put into something, buy a store-bought blend that somebody's already done all that for you. And this is not a commercial for this fantastic nectar produced by the McElhenney family in Avery Island, Louisiana, but my family will tell you that I could be the spokesperson for said nectar produced in Avery Island by the McElhenney family. I love Tabasco sauce, and I think that if you're going to add something to foods that a vegetarian is going to enjoy, adding some spiciness, giving it a little bit of kick is going to be a great choice. Now my last tip before I get to the one essential thing that you have to do when you're preparing food for vegetarians is to include fats in your meal. If you're cooking for a vegan, you're going to be limited to things like oils, but you can use avocado, you can use olive oil, you can use just vegetable oil. Canola oil is a great thing to prepare things in. But what actually gives us our sense that we are full, the thing that activates, not to get too technical and scientific about this, but the thing that activates our satiety centers, that makes us feel sated, like we've finished a meal and we are full, those are fats. That's the thing that your stomach has encountered, that those stomach receptors in the lining of your stomach have encountered, where you're like, man, gosh, that was a great meal and I am full. Those things are fats. So if you can use butter, if you can use cream, if you can use something like that in a dish, then please do. Your vegetarian friends and guests will appreciate that. And maybe even better than that is cheese. Unless you're cooking for vegans, and even if you're cooking for vegans, vegan cheese is a great option. Add cheese to your dish. Find a way to add cheese to your dish. One of my favorite dishes that I prepare is a vegetable pie from Trisha Yearwood's family recipe that came out in Southern Living or Better Home and Gardens a few years ago. And that recipe calls for a half and half mixture of mayonnaise and shredded cheese. And I will tell you, if you put mayonnaise and shredded cheese in 1-to-1 ratio on top of just about anything and bake it in the oven, it will taste fantastic. So use some fat in the dishes that you prepare. All right, y'all, this is it. The most important thing you can do when you're preparing food for vegetarians is make sure that you salt that food appropriately. Now, when I say salt it appropriately, one of the things that we encounter when we prepare meats is the meat itself has a lot of these things already in it. It's inherently fatty. It has some fat in it. In fact, most ground chuck, if you're not getting something that's 20% fat, then something has been done to process that meat to remove some of the fats in it. And fat inherently has some salty taste to it. And you know when a meat has been salted appropriately. So when you taste a seasoned steak and it's seasoned appropriately, when you taste a hamburger and it's got that kind of salty flavor to it, you know what that's like, and you know that that's the right amount of salt. And yet, when you prepare vegetables, we tend to skimp on the salt, and that's not okay, guys. I mean, that's the thing that makes people want to avoid vegetarianism, because they feel like, man, if I'm a vegetarian, I've got to eat a salad. I can't have any flavor to my food. Well, salt is like the ultimate flavor enhancer. It's going to enhance all of these other things that we've talked about: fats and spices and herbs, and the onion and acidity and those other things that you can do to your food to enhance flavor. Salt just is impactful in all of those things. So don't skimp on the salt. I actually read something today when I was thinking about this video that said, you only know where the line is of too much salt if you're trying to oversalt things. So salt and salt and salt, and when you know that you've crossed that line, you'll know it's too salty, and you can back off of that. There's ways that you can add something to the meal in order to reduce that saltiness as you're preparing it. But try and experiment with that line. Try and get up to where you're like, man, this is just as salty as that fantastic cheeseburger I had last week. That cheese and that meat and everything that was salted so well. Try and do that with vegetable stir fry. Tonight I was making a chana masala actually in the slow cooker, and luckily my eldest is fantastic. He loves to crank that grinder and just crank salt into it, and so I'd taste it after 20 minutes. It's got to have more salt. Taste it after another 20 minutes, man, it's still got to have more salt. And he just ate it up, getting to crank the grinder to put more salt in there. But you got to have a lot of salt. You prepare a whole pot of chickpeas, it's going to need a lot of salt. So salt your food well. Add some fats, add some cheese to the meal, give it some kick, give it some spices. Make sure that you're thinking about all these things when you prepare a meal for a vegetarian. 1, 2, 3, and some salt. Once you've got those 3 things down, put some salt on it, you're going to have a fantastic meal prepared for whomever your guests are, whether they're vegetarians, whether they're omnivores, whether they are like die-hard carnivores like I was the day that I became a vegetarian. Y'all, that's all I had for you today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something about preparing food for vegetarians. I hope you're going to be less intimidated by the idea of preparing something other than a salad for your friends that only want to eat vegetables. And If you like the video, please go ahead and let me know. If you have concerns or questions, put those in the comments. I'll be happy to respond. And thank you very much for watching.